This is the Self Storage Podcast, where we share the knowledge and skills from the industry's leading investors, developers, and operators to help you launch and grow your self-storage business. I'm your host, Scott Meyers, and over the past 16 years, we have acquired, developed, converted, and syndicated over 2 million square feet of self-storage nationwide with the help of my incredible team at selfstorageinvesting.com, who has helped thousands of people achieve greatness in self-storage. Welcome back to the Self Storage Podcast, where we are helping self-storage investors just like you get the knowledge and skills you need to grow and scale your self-storage business, even during a global pandemic. Well, it's no secret, self-storage investors are adapting to the new environment we find ourselves in and working through the challenges of the various state laws on whether self-storage is an essential business, and for the majority of facilities that are open, how do we conduct business in a normal fashion while practicing social distancing? Well, that's why we have brought on Josh Boyd with StoreEase to discuss how to shift your business to touchless rentals and actually improve the customer experience for our clients during these very challenging times. Josh Boyd is a founding partner of StoreEase, a provider of third-party property management for development and acquisitions, which is all delivered virtually. Their platform simultaneously reduces management overhead while improving the customer experience. And on this podcast, he answers the questions on how to seamlessly take your facility from a hands-on, high-touch model to a touchless, unmanned facility with the StoreEase solution. With that said, please help me welcome Josh Boyd. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and spending some time with us so people can get a chance to know a little bit more about you and a little bit more about your company. So why don't you, if you would, just tell us a little bit more about yourself and about how you started your company. Just kind of fill in the gaps for us.
Nothing too fancy. I was like most people out there looking to get into storage and diversify and have some passive income, trying to understand what was the best opportunity to do that. I was in medical sales for about 15 years and was selling disruptive technologies, really cutting edge technology into the operating room to hospitals, C-suite surgeons, CEOs, CFOs, et cetera. And so in doing so, was trying to also, again, create some type of passive investment on the side. Mm-hmm. Went and talked to my uncle-in-law, who's done everything from bingo halls to softball complexes to rental properties to store. I mean, you name it. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned self-storage to me, and I looked at him kind of sideways. I said, "What are you talking about, man? I'd never really thought about it." And he was like, "It's great. It's lower maintenance, et cetera, et cetera." And where it really kind of hit me, Scott, in terms of this is a great business to be in is, for at least for me, the ability to phase, the stability of the asset, the low maintenance, et cetera, but for the ability to phase. And what he said that got me to that point was, listen, go out, build you a row of storage units. When those fill up, build another row. When those fill up, build you another row. And I'm a pretty risk averse guy. And when he said that, that kind of made sense, mm-hmm. Not only financially, but just common sense. And so really took that idea and built my first facility. Now we've got 2 operational. We're building 5 more, and we've taken a spin on that. My uncle-in-law encouraged me originally to have a live-in manager, and I just kind of didn't really believe in that in terms of some of the experiences I had at storage facilities with that. So we went the automation route, and it's just taken off, and we really feel, in terms of what we're doing now, we're revolutionizing the industry with automation and virtual management. And so that's kind of how I got into it. Now I'm in it full time. It's so much fun. It's a great industry, a great business to be in. And so I've kind of retired from my medical device career to be in this 100%.
Well, and as most of the folks know on this call, my background very, very similar. I was in technology sales for a number of years and supplemented my retirement income by buying rental houses and apartments, and just didn't really care for that too much, and began looking around the landscape of what we can invest in, because I loved real estate, because people pay down your mortgage for you and you own it and you have a hard asset that is producing income. But it wasn't until I got really fed up with the tenants and toilets that I decided to begin looking into self-storage, and same thing, kind of always raised my eyebrow into thinking about going backwards when I felt in real estate to investing in these sheds on concrete slabs, the stepchild of the real estate industry, until you really begin to peel back the onion and you look at all of the benefits and why it's a superior asset class, in my opinion. And one of those that you touched on is from a development standpoint, you can't go out and build an office building one floor at a time and fill it up and scale it in and monitor your cash flow. You build the whole thing and you pray it fills up in time before you run out of cash reserves. But with
That's
storage, if
right.
you've got 3 or 4 acres, you build a building, you get 80, 90% occupied, then you build another. It's just very, very low risk from
Right.
that standpoint. So
It,
love
it,
that.
it makes the most sense that I've ever seen from a real estate investment perspective from an asset class. It's got the history of stability. It's got the history of performance. And I've got partners now that we've gone out and we've got management and we're developing, we're acquiring. Interestingly enough, my partners are doing 100% medical office building for the past 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very stable asset because we all need healthcare, right? And there's
Right.
always going to be surgeons to occupy medical office buildings. So they're going out and building $25 million medical office buildings plus. And when I kind of showed them, they helped me on the development side with storage. I showed them my ROI, my pro forma with storage with automation. They looked at me kind of, what is this? This is storage?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you're making more money on this, 50,000 square foot, 60,000 square foot facility than we are a $25 million medical office building. And so now they are flipped. And again, we partnered and they're probably doing 60 to 70% storage and still have medical office building, but they've realized the value. So even a lot of people, you see a lot of this institutional and even private equity flowing into storage, it's getting to where, especially with all the data and the tech, where it is now in the industry, how it's evolved, it's getting to be moving from kind of that redheaded stepchild to something that is just the bell of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really believe over the next 5-10 years, especially with tech and data, that there's going to be a lot of new money coming into the marketplace for storage, and it's going to continue to outperform.
Yeah. And we've seen the same thing, and we're obviously very bullish on it as well, making smart moves. But it's a very static industry. There's not a whole lot, and that's partly the reason why we like it. It's a very simple, predictable business model. Doesn't mean it's a simple business. You have to run the numbers, and you have to mind the store and walk the four corners of your business. But we just don't have a whole lot in the way of innovation. The closest was when kiosks really came into play back in 2004 and 5, and really started to take hold in 2006 and 7. But $15,000 to $18,000 and $225 to $250 a month doesn't really allow you to replace management hours or manage effectively, or even you end up over payrolling with a kiosk in a facility if it's too small.
That's right.
And so as we've evolved, the industry has found better ways to produce that same and even a better experience with technology, and it's improved. But one of the reasons why I want to have you on the call here is to talk a little bit more about that side of the business, or your side of the business, and how you've really kind of gamed that system and really taken it to another level. So if you wouldn't mind, share a little bit more about what StoreEase does and how they've really taken technology and automation to the next level.
Yeah, it's an exciting time in the industry. We really believe that there's been the spectrum of storage, and on one end it's the REITs with the best in class management solution, and on the other end it's kind of everyone else, mom and pop, left to kind of flail around and figure out how to run these facilities. And that's why you have one of the most fragmented industries in the country. 75 to 85% of the industry is non-REIT, mom and pop, me. And so it's one of those things to where when we were getting into this on the scale and in mass that we wanted to do it, we had to come up with a way to do this better. We really believe that kiosks are going to be a good use for a certain sector of the market. And we feel the REITs and, the traditional third-party management style is going to be good for a certain section of the market. But in between is 50 to 60% of the market. And when we looked out over the horizon of the landscape of storage, the average REIT facility net rentable square footage is about 75,000, low 70,000 square foot net rentable. So their facilities gross are over 100,000 square feet. And then the rest of the industry net rentable is just under 40,000 square feet. So less than half almost.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to play in that game with the rest of the industry because of the risk profile that I talked about with phasing and being able to do all that. But when we were trying to figure out how we're developers.
Mm-hmm.
How do we go out and build a best-in-class facility that improves the customer experience with automation, which we don't really feel kiosks do, as you kind of alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we go out and do that and then do it well, but then how do we run it? And when we kind of poked our head up and looked at all of the different potential third-party managers, there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't want to go out and we didn't want to hire our own employees to stick in the facility because we're automating and that just doesn't apply. So we really had to, they said, I think Thomas Edison said that necessity is the mother of all inventions. So we had to invent a way to manage our facilities with this automation to the level that we were doing it. And so we came up with this virtual management idea. And we really feel it's going to revolutionize the industry. We feel it is what has been missing. It's third-party virtual management. And we manage our facilities, but automated facilities. So we really feel it's the component that's been missing to help the market. We talk to so many people who want to automate, but the problem with that is how do you do it and do it well? How do you run it? And what's your exit strategy? And so we really feel doing the first question, doing it well. How do you do it and doing it well? We've answered at the facility level, but then you got to run it. Mm-hmm. And so the virtual management company kind of raises the bar from the old kind of traditional automated facility where you have a kiosk and you have a call center potentially, if you even have a call center. But where somebody walks up, the problem with that is you just don't have anyone there. Mm-hmm. And you're dependent upon the customer or consumer who walks into an empty building or walks up to an office or walks up to a vestibule and there's no one there. They have to interface with just a kiosk. And you are relying upon them to press a button to call a call center. Well, you still get that call center experience, which we feel is less than optimal. And so what we've done is we've taken this virtual management platform, and again, the kiosk we still feel for a certain section of the market is going to be applicable, but for the big cohort that I mentioned, we take the automation at the facility level, we improve the customer end experience, and then we're doing some things that no one else in the industry is doing. We have a district manager level type caliber person, talent level that you would see at an Extra Space or Q Smart or any of these REITs, and these guys are great at those places. But we take that district manager level type person and we put them in the facilities. So instead of them managing the on-site personnel at a traditional facility and not really interfacing with the customer, not being the captain of the ship, if you will, at the facility level, we disrupt that kind of status quo inefficiency, and we put the district manager level type person in our facilities virtually through our technology platform at point of sale throughout the facility to where the customer experience is improved. And that district manager is running multiple facilities. He's just doing everything. He's running the X's and O's. He's running the playbook. He's customer service. He's doing everything. Great revenue management, running the loan, the lien, the delinquency process. And we just really feel it makes all the sense in the world. Who wouldn't do it if you could do it? But the problem is you got to get that tech right at the facility level. So and then kind of once you get all those things right and you want to do automation in the past, what's been your exit strategy? If you look at some of the big guys out there that are doing automation, Red Dots and 10 Federals, their exit strategy is kind of built on hope. And not that that's wrong because they're sitting back and cash flowing, but we don't really feel the money will flow into this type of asset until you have a secure exit strategy. And that means being able to cash flow and or exit through a sale. And so where the third-party management is really answering that question is in the past, and I know because I lived this, if I had an automated asset, Scott, and I wanted to sell it to you in Indianapolis, and I live in Birmingham, you are going to, so the pool of capital, let's just say, is nationwide, right, potential buyers, and you are one person who's interested in Indianapolis. In a traditional sense, you would buy that facility and have a REIT run it, right? You could buy that facility, invest in it, cash flow, do all those things in terms of management. You couldn't buy it potentially unless you had your own management company or own way to do it, which most people don't have, you couldn't buy it and stick a manager in there from that distance, right? You would still have to oversee that person and manage that person. So it was just a broken mechanism. With automated facilities, you still wouldn't buy it because you would have to believe in automation, which is a small percentage of the market right now. And automation is not unmanned, unattended. You can't just stick the kiosk in and have these facilities run themselves like you alluded to. So it becomes this thing to where the buyer pool for these automated assets shrinks. And when that happens, you get into this situation to where you got people coming to want to buy this automated facility who don't have confidence in automation and don't know how to run it. And so what's going to happen? For the vast majority of the market who potentially are buyers of your asset, they're going to put a manager in there, or they're going to hire a REIT. And so even the appraisal is not going to, at least now that's changing, but the appraisal is not going to allude to the value of the automation. So what happens? The NOI, my NOI on my pro forma or my P&L is $500,000 a year, let's say. And so I have a value at a 6 cap or 6.5 cap, whatever that may be in my head of what my facility's worth. Well, like I said, the problem with that is the buyer pool doesn't assign that same value. They're going to take that NOI of 500,000 and make it 420 because they're going to put 60,000 a minimum of cost on my model because they can't run it the way I did. So you get to this Mexican standoff to where I'm not going to sell to that person and they're not going to buy from me. So there's no exit strategy, right? And so we really feel the third party ability to virtually manage these facilities with these district manager level type people doing everything at the facility is going to optimize the performance of the facility and allow the transmission, kind of creating a New York Stock Exchange, if you will, to buy and sell these assets between buyer and seller across the country. So now with the third party virtual management, you can have a person in Alaska buy a facility in Birmingham and they don't even have to touch it, right? They can buy it, they can invest in it, they can sit back, have someone manage it for them, the same model that's being run right now in the REIT style third party management. And so we really feel that is what's been missing. Only about 4 to 5% of the market has adopted automation, and there's some guys out there doing it really well, but it hasn't really seen the follow through because of those issues that I mentioned. So that's kind of holistically, that's a lot, but that's kind of holistically where we are positioned and where we feel the market is going over the next 5 to 10 years. And we just believe it. The math is too compelling. There's too much value being created in what we're doing for it to not go this way.
Well, and you're right, and appreciate that, Josh. And there's a few things that I wanted to comment on, and you're right. Necessity is the mother of invention, and that is, how do we bridge that gap? Because nobody cares, not even 1% as much about your facility, your investment, as much as you do. But that doesn't scale. You can't sit at your facility and make sure that no customer walks out the door without renting to you and then getting all the add-ins. That only happens when there is that human interaction. So therein lies the gap. And so if you put a third-party property management company in, even the best, and we vetted many of them, and there's some that we still replace if they have the wrong people in place at the store level or even at that regional manager or district manager level that you mentioned. It doesn't take long before a facility can decline in performance, and you have to make a change in management companies if you're stuck with those folks. And in many of these facilities, the size that you're talking about, the 40,000 and under, if we're underwriting with a management fee of 5% to oversee it, and then payroll on top of that, it usually only supports somebody in that $11 to $12 an hour range, working 20, 30,
That's right.
35 hours a week. And at that level, you get what you pay for. And so you're putting
exactly right.
somebody that's making $11, $12 an hour that, was a great hairstylist or a person at some other service organization that you found and plucked and trained and put her or him into your facility, but you're putting them in charge of a $1 million or $2 million asset, and you wouldn't
That's
hire
exactly
that
right.
person to manage your stock portfolio, so they're not well suited to manage this either. So therein lies the quandary. And so, as I mentioned in the intro, we are using StoreEase and very excited about this concept because it bridges that gap, and it does it very, very well, and in a way that in which you can scale, is putting that district manager caliber person in the store and doing it via video and a connection where they can still
Right.
check out and perform that transaction, with the kiosk and the automation, but there is somebody there looking over their shoulder, albeit through video, and a nice big screen there, but the experience is the same.
Yep.
You and I both know, Josh, that this is, many more experiences, call it via kiosk, but really just in other instances that you can see in merchant type transactions or just in meetings like Zoom, where we're used to using video and connecting that way. And so that experience is not lost. And as our society begins to become more accustomed to that via e-learning or you name it, it's going to be a non-issue, and we're already seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it in sports, right? There's been a decline in stadium attendance. That's nothing like going to a football game to some degree if you're a huge fan, but you're seeing declines in attendance to games because why? The TVs have gotten so good. You've got 4K, you've got HD, you can sit on your couch, have a restroom, all these things, and watch it on the screen. So it's happening in other sectors. It's happening in business. And we just take that same type approach. And, our interface where you walk into our facility, our virtual managers have the ability to proactively come over and engage the customer through that video chat. Mm-hmm. And it is HD. It's beautiful. It looks great in terms, it's like they're right there, and the audio is crisp and clear. And so it takes that same type of idea with sports and stadiums and watching on the couch on your 4K HD TV and puts it in the storage facility. And people are used to that, Scott. Everybody is used to that. And more importantly, that we don't put the $10 or $12 an hour person back there. It's not a call center experience. It's a salaried manager. And we just really feel that has been the missing piece in terms of this automation value proposition. Mm-hmm. And we just really feel that is the game changer.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another piece that you touched on as well is the exit strategy, which is huge. And that's a tie-in for this platform, your platform. In our mastermind, we have about 100 folks that meet once a quarter, and we're all out there buying multiple facilities. And, I had I don't know if it's an epiphany. I don't know that I receive epiphanies, but I had an idea about a year and a half ago that stated we're all out there buying facilities, the same size in different markets across the country. And we're all learning about best business practices and doing things in a similar fashion and trying to get everybody on the same underwriting software so that, we can evaluate each other's projects if we're looking to just wholesale it or, somebody has an opportunity, let alone buying a facility that may be in a lease up or even something that is stabilized. The more standardization there is, even on the front end from an evaluation standpoint, to then property management software to vendors, it makes it easier for us within our own mastermind to be able to trade properties and share information. And then I thought, well, why not? Why don't we take this to the next level if we're continuing to grow our mastermind within a certain parameter? And when Bill in Birmingham, Alabama, wants to sell his facility or 2 or 3 facility portfolio, and Jim wants to do the same, and he's in North Carolina or in California, and they're very similar. Why wouldn't we put that out there to into the market for a bigger fish to come along? Because we know that the bigger fish, whether it's a regional player or a national player, it probably isn't a REIT that's going to buy a smaller facility, but if they can buy, larger players will buy a gaggle of them, and they can do it with automation, and it's really easy for them to evaluate and look at these, 2 different owners, 2 different portfolios, but using the same, similar or same platforms from a management standpoint and an operational standpoint. Then we know that brings in a higher multiple, a lower cap rate and a higher multiple when we sell them.
That's right.
So, there's thankful for the technology and the players that are coming into self-storage to offer some options. But at the end of the day, I don't think that we can get to, in my opinion, fast enough. We can't get to a common platform, or at least a couple to choose from that, is ahead of the pack, that understands the business, that we can all get on more of a common platform. And from my standpoint and viewpoint, what you're doing right now fits that bill. And that is the reason why we're continuing to pull you into more of our projects and sing your praises.
Yeah, and really for us, I totally agree, Scott. The scalability, the reproducibility of this experience, it not only from a management but from a customer experience and consumer experience is critical, right? Mm-hmm. It's critical to have it be the same across the platform, across the facility. So we have a virtual counter. We called it a virtual counter, and that is our counter. That is kind of when you walk in, that's the experience. We're actually going to be showing this and kind of launching this in Vegas We're going to have a booth there. If you're coming to Vegas, definitely would love to have you come by and we can show it to you. And then we've also too, so I don't know if I answered this. I think it's important because probably some listeners have some questions. So we just, again, the kiosk experience, they're costly, not only on the upfront, but they have a lot of operational. So we developed an app for StoreEase. It's called a 2-minute move-in app. We had a developer in New York do that. And it was, so it's best in class. They did Shake Shack's apps and some apps for Budweiser. So we really wanted to get it right. So we invested a lot of money. It integrates with StoreEdge, who's our property management software, and it's an iPad. So an iPad, we put 2 of them on our virtual counter just for redundancies, but in case 2 people were wanting to move in at the same time, but an iPad costs, we use the iPad Pro, much cheaper. The operational expense costs $2.50 a month for us to be able to monitor and mobily manage each device. So from an operational perspective, it's pennies compared to what a kiosk is, and it's better. The power in these iOS devices is infinitely better than a kiosk. We can scan a driver's license with the camera on the back, as you probably as anyone's probably done on their phone. We can scan the driver's license, it auto-populates. We scan a credit card, it auto-populates. So we can get the move in. So we're not just improving the customer manager, virtual manager interaction. We're improving the onboarding experience. Everything else is just, a cherry on top. So really revolutionizing the way that a consumer can come in and move in ways that they're doing every day on their smartphone and translating that to a storage facility, adding this tech piece. And our virtual counter, we send it out to all of our facilities, all of our third-party facilities. It comes in 2 crates. It's installed, and you literally plug it into it. It comes fully assembled. You plug it into a power outlet, and you put a Cat5 data connection into the switch in the electrical closet for the internet, and that's it. Like everything lights up, everything talks, everything's preloaded. We can communicate with it. And so really what you're mentioning in terms of across the platform, everything being the same and everything looking the same for us is critical. And we also feel that is a huge tailwind for adoption of automation, instead of it being like, a certain kiosk here, a certain kiosk there, and a call center here, a different call center here, and it being very fragmented within a fragmented industry.
So that brings up another question then, Josh. There's a whole lot of folks that if they haven't heard about your platform yet, they're obviously very interested. So share with us, if you would, your sweet spot, and then behind that, is there a size of facility in terms of revenue or units in which this still may not be a fit?
Yes, absolutely. Importantly, we third party manage. So the way this operates is if someone's interested in using us as a third party management, once UCO, we come in early on the development side or even on the acquisition side, and we're not a GC, we're not a project manager, but we're there as kind of a resource because there's certain things that need to happen before CO or before takeover of that facility to allow us to virtually manage the property. So we come in, work with you. We have tiers. So the way we kind of work so our management fee is 4% versus the industry norm, which is 6%. So we have a lower management fee, and then we have a personnel line item. We have traditional expenses. Third-party management costs money. It's valuable, right? So it's going to add a little more. So to answer your question, but it's significantly less. We're seeing, I think it's important to say too, we're seeing anywhere between $60,000 increase in NOI to $150,000 roughly increase in NOI on the projects that we are doing and looking at compared to traditional models, be it a mom and pop or a third-party management solution. But importantly, it all depends on where you are. I mean, the revenue number is critical. So, we think our sweet spot is anywhere between kind of 40,000 gross square feet up to 85,000 gross square feet. We've got some properties that we're doing one in Cleveland, we're third party managing, that's 100,000 gross square feet. But we really feel, at least for now, that kind of where the industry is, right? That 50 to 60,000, 40,000 gross square foot facility is where this really shines. And that's where the biggest need is in the industry. Like I said, 75% of the market is in is in that zone, is in that cohort. And so, once you get down especially in a rural market or kind of a secondary suburban market, 15, 20, 25,000, 30,000 square feet, that's where we really feel the kiosk model is still going to be there. You just don't have the revenues to justify kind of this tech solution and this higher level, higher quality of management. But we look at all deals, we look at all projects, and again, we don't just turn our nose up at anything by any means. So we're happy to look at a 30,000 square foot facility if the revenues are there and kind of show you what our operational expenses are and overlay it and see if it works. But importantly, we've got projects where we are doing and third parties are doing to where they are starting in the $40,000 to $60,000 square foot range, and then scaling, right? So you get into a market, you build phase one, you get virtual management because you can go smaller with virtual management because the operational expense burden is lower, so the numbers work. There's so many financial benefits to this, not only to risk mitigation, but to break even faster, to occupy your occupancy percentage is faster, you cash flow quicker because everything's smaller and leaner, right? It's kind of the Amazon model, so to speak. And then once you do that phase one, if you have the ability to phase two, the great thing about this is a $40,000 to $50,000, I'm sorry, I keep saying dollar square foot facility with virtual management can stand alone, right? It can stand alone. If you go into a project and try to do two phases, you can build a phase one with this. And if you never got the phase two, you're fine. You're cash flowing, everything looks good. You got a lot of equity in the project and everything's great. But it gives you the ability to mitigate that risk, confirm, lease up, and then go to phase two, which is maybe another 30, 40, 50,000 square feet. We've got most of our projects are 85, 90,000 square feet gross, but we phase them. And so it just allows you to ease into a market. We really feel, and Scott, I'm sure you agree with this, but we really feel there's a problem in the industry to where you have 60% of new supply over the last 4 years is going into 35% of the market, and that's the urban markets. We really feel there's so much money being poured into the urban markets to chase yield that it's dangerous. It's dangerous. We've got revenues turning over nationally. Q2 2016 was when revenues peaked nationally, rental rates peaked nationally. And what's interesting and what's alarming about that is that happened with occupancy levels at all-time highs, 92, 93, 91% the past few years. And so we really feel it's important as a fiduciary of our own money and our third parties to provide a way for people to go into some of these markets, especially the suburban and even the rural markets, and be able to phase into deals, take less risk, have a very prudent investment. And we have seen numbers from our deals, our third-party partners. We've looked at their pro formas. We had one third party that was having a REIT run their facility. It's now us. And our 50 to 60,000 square foot facility yields as much return on the investment as a 90 to 100,000 square foot traditionally third-party managed facility. So it's just really important to look at that optically through the financials, Scott, as I know you do in all of this, and not only be able to mitigate risk, but to potentially go into markets that you've never looked at before, that you may not have thought about just because you just didn't like the deal. You had to go bigger. There wasn't enough, you had to go build a 90 or 100,000 square feet. So this is just a great way to hedge and diversify your portfolio, or make it the primary, kind of put it as a primary weapon in your armamentarium to go out and develop. And so that's what we're doing. We're focusing on secondary markets, the suburban markets. We're phasing, and we just feel really comfortable and confident about where we are positioned in the next 5 years compared to where the rest of the industry is.
And you're absolutely right, and I do agree 100%. And the first facility, as you know, that we are developing and using your platform is in a secondary market. And through all this, we started in the value add, suburban and even close to rural markets of buying these Class C first and second generation facilities that were not being run well by the mom and pops. And then coming in and once again, trying to manage these as best as possible without doing it ourselves with part-time people and kiosks. And then, as our company grew, we got kind of pulled into many partnerships, and even on our own accord, looking into dipping back into the MSAs, within the urban markets, and building larger facilities with the intention of then selling it off to a REIT at some point. But the risk in that is, in a 4 or 5 year play, where we're bringing in equity partners, is that we have to perform. We have to perform through a recession. We have to perform through competitors coming in. And the thing that never really set well with me, Josh, and it is all about numbers, and we underwrite these and we use feasibility studies. But after looking at and buying facilities and additional land in these suburban markets, and here in the Midwest, and really up and down the Eastern Seaboard, except for those major cities, paying $50,000, $65,000 an acre and running those numbers, it just felt comfortable. And then to go into an MSA, into the urban areas, and spending $250,000, $500,000 an acre, boy, that just doesn't sit well. And you model it out, and you look at rental rates, and you cross your I's, you dot your T's, and you do the studies again over and over. But at the end of the day, that still just didn't sit well with me in those areas for the reasons you just mentioned. You have to build a large facility in order to get those yields, versus going out into the suburban areas, going back to single story, maybe multi-story or a combination, but on ground that doesn't have such a burden of a holding cost, because you only spent $500,000 for 5 acres going into it.
That's
So
right.
that's the piece that makes me just feel more comfortable. And now knowing that I can get back to my roots, and now we've gained the management piece, which has always been the bigger challenge. You have to have a bigger facility to warrant that 5% management fee and a full-time person if you really want it to be run correctly.
Yeah, that's it. That is where the industry will evolve to. And even the REITs, and even some, the industry leaders, the experts in kind of management of facilities, they know this is coming, right? It's how do you improve that customer experience? That's the critical piece. And if you can do that in a way that lowers OpEx, increases NOI, mitigates risk, all the math works great. The banks, we got banking relationships with multiple different institutions, and they love what we're doing, because from a risk profile, we go back to the beginning of our conversation. You take storage, and you take the safety, the outperformance, the stability of storage in good times and bads, and you mix that with better profitability, improving customer experience, loans that perform better with this automation virtual management piece. And you just can't, you'll lose sleep over it once you start looking at it, and really kind of understanding how it happens, just because the opportunity is so great. So I totally agree. And we're following that same philosophy, Scott. I know a lot of your listeners, we don't talk to anybody who doesn't want to take less risk and work towards the same yield, right? I mean, everybody in the world who's a capitalist, who's an investor, wants to take less risk for a similar return or greater return. And so that's kind of the underpinning of StoreEase virtual management.
Well, Josh, again, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to be mindful of it as well. And so we're going to have you back for round 2, because there's lots more that we need to talk about. But 2 last questions, and the first is, you've spoken at the ISS shows, and I'm assuming some of the SSA shows, whether it be national or regional. You're on this podcast, and so there's an awful lot of folks out there that are in the industry, that are in the sweet spot in which this makes sense. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing operationally to scale, and how you are handling the influx of people that are interested in learning more about what you do, and how you move them through the process.
Yeah, that's a great question, Scott. And really what we're doing is for us, we just want to do a good job, right? We see the opportunity for what we are doing, and we just don't want to squander anything, right? So we are trying to responsibly grow this. There is so much demand for what we have. If we went out and took a shotgun approach and tried to go after, the 75% of the market, we would set this movement back years, because it wouldn't be good. So And there's going to be competition coming in the next few years. I can guarantee it. There's too much about. I saw a Peloton commercial 6 months ago, and Peloton had this successful IPO. There's like 5 different Peloton, different companies now that have the same type of stuff. There's going to be competition. So we know the market is going to move this way, but getting in on the front end is the key. It's the key to everything in business. And we really feel we're going to lead in terms of innovation and doing it best. But importantly, if you are interested in looking at this, we have our website, StoreEase.com. There's a third-party management tab that kind of high-level talks about this. But we are bringing people in to see what we're doing, right? Seeing is believing. Steve Jobs famously said, people don't know what they want till you show it to them. And we believe that philosophy, right? We want to set expectations. We want to make sure this is right for a developer, for an investor, and make sure there's no surprises. And once we do that, we take you through our facilities. We let you see how we're doing it. We take you back to the virtual headquarters. So it's a process, right? You can't just call us up and say, I want to do this. And we're like, great, and sign a management contract, or, unleash all of this to you. So we really want to make sure that it's right for your project, not only for you, but for us. And so it's really a true partnership. It's really a true partnership. There's transparency, there's trust, there's no surprises. And that's how we're doing it, to do it in a responsible way, to where we not only take care of the consumer at the facility, but we take care of our third party. And so we don't like third party. We use it because the industry talks about it, but it's a partnership. And so, yeah, we'll talk to you about your project. And if it's something that piques your interest, again, through this conversation, or just talking to us individually, kind of learn about what you're doing, what your plans are. There's a lot of things this model will allow you to do that you don't really think about. We've had a lot of developers who've come in and they've been bogged down geographically. They've been bogged down with their own management. What this does is allow you to come in and opens up your landscape of potential where to go look at deals, because you're not geographically bound by, hiring a manager in LaGrange, Georgia, or hiring a manager in Oklahoma City, or, figuring out a way to run a property, or having a REIT come into a geography, or another third-party management company. We can go to any market. We're trying to stay kind of Central Eastern time for now, and we're going to be expanding into Mountain and Pacific time later this year. But you can go into any market in the country and we can run these things. As long as it has internet, and pretty much everywhere does now, we can run these facilities and do it remotely and virtually, and do, we feel, I believe, as good a job as anybody else.
Well, and I've seen it, folks, and Josh and his entire team, they are very accommodating and very hospitable, and I am looking forward to getting back together with you when we come down for the next site visit in Fultondale, because we were kind of rushed the last time around, but looking forward to that. So, Josh, last thing is, if you would, well, first of all, tell us again the website where people can go to learn a little bit more about what you're doing, as well as contact you to see if it's a fit for them.
Yes, it's StoreEase.com, and there is that is our kind of facility facing page. So we've gone through this name change. We've rebranded with StoreEase and invested all this money. So that website actually came online last week, and so we're going to be continuing to build it out with facilities. By the end of this year, without anything else happening, we've got 15 facilities within our portfolio. Facilities that we that we own, but then we're also third-party managing as well. So that will continue, facilities to be added as we go here. And then there's a third-party management tab on there. You can kind of see high level what we talked about here. There's a picture of the virtual counter. It's a rendering. To see it in real life is the way to go, absolutely. But you can see a rendering and kind of see our philosophy and how we're doing this. And in terms of how it could potentially align and add value to what you're doing. So I would encourage you to look around on that, and then call us. There on the third-party management tab, our director of new development, her phone number is there, and we'd be happy to talk with you individually on the phone, and then figure out if there's an opportunity for you to come down and see this in person and talk about it in person at one of our facilities. So that's kind of the process. And yeah, we are, it's a pleasure being with you, Scott. We're passionate about this. We get excited about it. I hope it's valuable to your listeners, and we definitively want to do a good job, and we'll be happy to look at any project that anybody brings our way.
Absolutely, and it definitely has been. And so, folks, StoreEase.com, and that's two E's, StoreEASE.com, to contact Josh and learn a little bit more about what they're doing. So, with that, Josh, I want to thank you for your time. And do you have any parting words of wisdom that you would like to share with the folks before we sign off?
You're in a great industry. It's good news and bad news. If you're looking at or you're in storage, it's a great industry. It's one of the best. The bad news is, that's the good news. The bad news is you just got to be careful. You've got to, with any investment, mitigate risk, be a good steward of not only your money, but your banking relationships money, and your other partners, your equity partners. And there is a bright future with storage, not only right now, but in the past, but right now going forward. And we really feel if you are interested in, this new level of automation, this new level of virtual management, we really feel the sky's the limit in terms of opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years. There's going to be other opportunities in these rural markets, like these other, ends of the spectrum that I mentioned. But we really feel the sweet spot is what we've discussed today. And either way you go, again, just do your diligence. Get the storage almanac, read it. Scott's a great resource. Know what's going on in the marketplace and be nimble, and you'll have a long, successful career in storage.
Well, thanks so much, Josh, and we appreciate that. And that's what this movement is all about in our education company and our podcast, is making sure that people don't lose that first battle and therefore lose the war. But as people learn about the business and implement best business practices, then we as an industry, as the proverb says, when the tide rises, all boats go with it. So that's what we're all about here. So again, thanks, Josh, for your time. And for everybody else out there, we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, Scott.
You've been listening to the Self Storage Podcast, where self-storage investors come to learn how to launch and scale their self-storage business. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, and of course, a 5-star rating would be much appreciated. And if you're looking to do an even deeper dive into the world of self-storage, head on over to our sponsor, selfstorageinvesting.com, and check out their entire suite of resources, from software, business plans, home study guides, live events, private money assistance, mentoring, and even how to apply to become a member of the Self-Storage Mastermind. So head on over to selfstorageinvesting.com and pull down one of the free guides to get you started. And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.